Pregame.com.
College basketball finally takes center stage here at pregame.tv. I'm Scott Spreitzer. He's Marco D'Angelo. We're talking about a Mo Valley Big Ten clash in the heartland when Creighton goes to Lincoln to battle the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Creighton laying 8 points as we talk about this one. And Marco, the Blue Jays, they're the real deal. Anything less than an Elite Eight berth for this team is a disappointment to this team this year as far as I'm concerned. As far as they are concerned also, they're looking for a historic season for Creighton Blue Jay basketball. I'm a huge Blue Jay fan, but I don't bet anything, as you know, with my heart. Now, they're tough to tangle with all season long. All their games, they've scored at least 70 points or more. They had the one brain freeze against Boise. They lost 83-70 in that one. But as good as they are, there are a couple of weaknesses, and there are a couple of caveats, if you will. I'm going to talk about those in just a minute. Let me get your thoughts on this game first.
Well, I'm going to get to Creighton in a second, but Nebraska, and I know you're also a Nebraska boy at heart, so you know both teams here. Nebraska, I don't think anybody expected them to get off to the start that they did this year with, they're not bringing, they only got one starter coming back from last year's edition. But going to Creighton, yeah, the expectations are high. And that one, as you said, a brain freeze they had, really, that could be expected because what they did, they were coming off of that holiday tournament over Thanksgiving here in Vegas where they played at the Orleans just down the street from where we're taping at right now. And they had that tournament. They played very well. They won the tournament. Now they go home, 4 days after that, and it was their first game. It was a flat spot. I think you could, I can excuse that loss. And I also, for me, with these teams, that a team like Creighton that's got expectations this year, I think it's better to actually stub your toe early in the season and get them, quit reading the press clipping, so to speak, and get refocused. I got to agree with you. This team looks pretty good moving forward.
They lost to a very good Boise State team that's still kind of flying under the radar, by the way. I've had Boise State a couple of times this season. They've been good to me. Didn't have them in this game. I passed when they played against the Creighton Blue Jays.
They're not flying under the radar anymore.
No, they're not.
We just
told everybody who watches. But anyway, here's a couple of the things that you can do when you're going up against Creighton, or what you can work against Creighton. And one of those is they're working with a new starting point guard this season. And I've seen a couple of instances, and maybe I'm splitting hairs a little bit, but I've seen a couple of times where he's not the quarterback or the floor general that they need at times to distribute the basketball. A few too many looks Doug McDermott's way, which isn't a real bad thing, but you want to get everybody involved early on in their games. The second thing, they sometimes rely too much on Doug McDermott, which plays off of what I just said. The third thing is that if Gregory Echenique, which is the Rutgers transfer, he's been outstanding since he came to this team. In fact, he committed as a transfer from Rutgers when Dana Altman was still a coach. But Echenique, they need his big body underneath. He will have a tendency to get in foul trouble against good teams, and as this season moves forward. And number four, if not focused, as we saw against Boise, their defensive play can really let them down because they are such an up-tempo game. You'll see them lose focus on the defensive end before they do offensively. And the fifth point that I want to make on this is that in this particular game, as much as I like Coach Greg McDermott, I don't think he's as good as Tim Miles. I think Tim Miles gets it. He's the Brad Stevens type that we got right now at the Butler Bulldogs. Tim Miles, at halftime of the win over USC game, tweets out what Nebraska needs to keep doing to not only maintain the lead, but win the basketball game against USC. He's a young, up-and-coming guy that turned Colorado State, from almost a laughingstock into a contender for Sweet 16-age, as I make up words. But the bottom line is, he's got a couple of big bodies underneath. He's got this kid named Ubel who goes about 6'10", 6'11". Almeida is a huge space eater. And watch this guy. He's a load and a half in the paint. I think if they can do their job, which is to get Echenique into a little bit of foul trouble, block him out on the glass, I think it's going to be one of those nights that goes right down to the wire.
It could be. One thing that you said about the inexperience, with the point guard for Creighton, what I like about this Creighton team that they're doing, and too many teams don't do it, you get the November and early December schedule, you schedule all those cream puffs that do you no good other than pad your stats, where they've played some meaningful ball games like the tournament and stuff, and then scheduling this game and, a team like Boise State, where come March, when it really counts and you're trying to run deep, these kind of games is what's going to make a young players much better, and I give them credit for that. I don't know which way you're going, but I think that because Nebraska's coming off of the last two games where they beat name-wise, they beat big schools, but they're not the teams that they used to be. They beat Wake Forest and they beat Southern Cal, and I think both of those programs are way down this year. But because of the names, people are going to look and say, "Oh, Nebraska's playing better." I think you're losing a little bit.
Better, trust me.
Yeah.
They might not win this game, they might not cover, but they're playing much better.
But I think they're going to be overcompensated because of the names of the teams they just beat.
All right, let's get to my free pick. Huge Tim Miles fan, and when Nebraska was able to get him away from Colorado State, I thought, wow, what a feather in the cap. And I like Doc Sadler, but he never quite got it in Lincoln, Nebraska. Tim Miles is already showing what he's worth. This team's off to a great start, 6-1, something like their best start in about 4 or 5 years. Last year, a Creighton team that at this point of the season was better than this Creighton team because they had a true leader at point guard. Trust me, Creighton's going to be better than that team at the end of the season, but right now, they are not as good as they were last year. Are playing a Nebraska team that's better coached, with better tools right now than they had last year. Nebraska kept it within 10. It was a 10-point spread by the end of the game in Omaha. I think this Nebraska team plays it real close. I think you're talking about a game that ends up with about 4 or 5 points as far as the victory margin is concerned. This isn't going to be a premium play, but it's a free pick for me on the Nebraska Cornhuskers plus the points over the Creighton Blue Jays. Celtics Sixers coming up next. More basketball. I love it. It's a Friday game. Stick around for that one right here at pregame.tv.